Dear students, I'm back again with the how can we question. Watch this PowerPoint, please. How can we? Why do we need that question? Well, it is an activating question. Okay, so it is not focusing on a solution but on a problem. And that is basically what I asked you to do. It is important that we don't jump into conclusions yet. We ask the question because we just don't want to jump into conclusions because that gives us no room for exploring alternatives. And we lock our brain to only see what we want to see. Um, in the PowerPoint, you can check the link. Please do that. There are more links. The two links below can give you an idea about what you can do when you feel free to think whatever is possible. Uh, and you have really more brilliant ideas than when you only start thinking about the solution. So first think about how can we. It also could be a little other question. I come to that later. Okay, problems and opportunities. That is what I already said in the introduction. It, it, it can be a problem, of course, but it also can be an opportunity, you see. So that is the entrepreneurship in you that you think, oh, this does not exist, but it would be very good when we are inventing this or whatever. So that is also an opportunity. You don't have to think only in problems, you can see chances. A problem again is that you are not satisfied with the current situation and that you have a desired situation. You want to come there, but how? In this presentation, I learn you how to formulate your how can we question, and I tell you a little about the design criteria canvas. Step 1, you have to think it over. You thought it over in May holiday probably, but think again in the group with your project coach and ask yourself those questions that are on this PowerPoint. New ideas don't make a difference if we don't fully understand the subject. So try to understand, and that is by asking each other questions, of course. Um, it it doesn't make a difference when we estimate that the subject is not important enough, or we don't really want to tackle it. So find one that you think of is very interesting to do, you know. And of course, we are when we are unable to make choices or whatever. So think about it. Can you really make the difference? When it's not, find another how can we question or another problem, or ask another problem from one of the other group members or the other startups. That's also okay, because it is very important that it inspires you. Step 2, is the subject clear? This is what you have to discuss with each other in the group of 3 startups. Can we ask the right questions to gain enough insight? Do we have data to use? So think about it. Can you gather information? Is it far too difficult? And is it maybe better to find another problem because maybe you can't come up with a good prototype for that service or product? So think about it and discuss, please, also with your project coach. Okay, then you are going to start building your starting formulation. Um, these are the requirements. This is what you have to do. It should be in one sentence and it should be specific, you know, because otherwise general problems general how can we questions we cannot find solutions for or prototype them. Like, how can we save the planet? What would be the answer, you know? So you can't have creative thoughts about that. It has to be more specific. The problem owner should be in your formulation too, because then you personalize it. Like, okay, this institute or that or me or that family or that company, it is better to mention the problem owner in your how can we question. And that's why you have to start with how can we, because you start up activating your brain already, like, okay, how can I, it helps. But of course you can have another sentence when you really are focusing on a final result, and then you could say create da, 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 for ha 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 ha, or so still try to mention the owner, try to mention as specific as possible what you want to do, but then you skip the how can we and you replace it with create a haha or design or come up with. Try to make it challenging. I already said that, but it is quite important that when you read it, you think, oh yeah, okay, I have ideas already. Okay, at the bottom there is an example because it is specific and there is an owner and it is challenging. I think it's challenging. Maybe I will give it a try. When you make this question, you have to take your time for it, because you say, why would you have the whole afternoon for it? Of course, because you are with 3 startups, but also because you have a well thought out starting formulation. That makes a difference. When you have a good formulation and you did your research, you prepared, you searched on the internet for existing solutions already, or that it is not a brilliant idea at all, So find yourself as much information as possible and come up with a good how can we question. And when you have a good question, you still can gather information to understand better what the content and the context of your question is. But take your time for it. And it is not carved in stone. You can change it anytime you like. Of course, you have to come up with a good how can we question before the ideation session of your class. You can look into your schedule when that is. So the last class is 1A on Monday afternoon, but the others are have their ideation session quite soon, also with your project coach and small groups. The next step we do is when you have that how can we question or create sentence formulated, you have to think about design criteria, like there shouldn't be any waste, for example, like that kind of design criteria, to be sure your vision will be still part of your design, that you are not only focusing on the design, but think about, okay, what are the requirements here, what should it be, what are the criteria, and therefore you list all criteria that you can think of. I only mention a few here, but it has to be cheap, could be criteria, make people plus happy, locally provided, etc. All that criteria you just list, not more than that. Afterwards, you use the design criteria canvas that is given with a double loop, and in the left margin you see one. There they say, okay, you have to categorize them in must, should, could, and won't. So things that the design of the service or product really have, then you say it must. So you categorize everything. So it must be cheap, or it should be cheap, or cheap is not important at all, So you categorize it like that, so you know more about how to make a new product before you start ideation. The canvas and the instructions are already on Blackboard in week 2, knowledge base. You can click on it and download it. Of course, you can find it on www too, but it is there already. And the instruction is short. Follow the steps, and of course, maybe you understand it already now, and you can use the canvas. But first, be sure that you have your good "how can we" or create question. Recap, you write a well thought out starting formulation, and 2, you use the design criteria canvas to be sure your vision is clear to all before you start to ideate in the next round. And that is where I'm going to tell you what I'm to tell you about, um, maybe tomorrow or maybe today. I don't know yet. Thanks for watching, and good luck this afternoon. Bye.